The laptop cast a faint blue glow in Kira Donovan's small apartment. The clock on the wall neared midnight, yet she showed no sign of tearing her eyes away from the screen. An anonymous email, with no name and no sender address, had just appeared in her inbox. If you want to expose one of the biggest dirty financial networks in the world, board the Elysium yacht this Friday. Your ticket has been arranged. Beneath that brief message was an attached file containing documents about Blackwood Shipping, the largest maritime transport corporation in Europe, with a logistics network spanning across the oceans. And the man at the helm of this empire was none other than Sebastian Blackwood, a powerful CEO, yet so elusive he was almost invisible. No one knew his face. There were no interviews, no official photos. In fact, no one could even confirm if he truly existed. Blackwood Shipping was not just a shipping company. In the underground financial world, there were rumors that the corporation was not only involved in legal cargo transport, but also controlled massive illicit trades. Weapons, blood diamonds, money laundering. Whispers surrounded Blackwood Shipping, but no one had ever gathered enough proof to expose them, until Kira received this email. She narrowed her eyes and scrolled to the bottom of the email, where a VIP ticket to the Elysium yacht was attached. A luxurious floating palace owned by Blackwood Shipping, where billion-dollar deals were sealed amidst extravagant, unregulated parties. Kira never trusted anonymous messages, but these documents, they were real. And if there was even the slightest chance to uncover the true face of Blackwood Shipping, she wouldn't miss it. Kira was no stranger to high-stakes investigations. She had exposed an international money laundering ring, brought a corrupt politician to justice, and faced powerful figures willing to do anything to silence her. But this time, she felt something different. This story was far more dangerous than anything she had ever encountered. Blackwood Shipping was too big, too powerful, and the man behind it, Sebastian Blackwood, was nothing short of a ghost in the financial world. She knew she was playing a dangerous game, but the truth had to be revealed. She clicked on the ticket and placed it in her case file. 3 days from now, she would step aboard the Elysium, posing as a VIP guest, and for the first time, she would come face to face with this elusive empire. What she didn't know was that this journey would change her life forever. Welcome to today's story. May God bless you with all the best things in life. Subscribe to our channel to become part of the Soul Stories family. Don't forget to share your thoughts on this story. The Monaco harbor shimmered under dazzling lights as Kira stepped onto the gangway leading to the Elysium yacht. Guests arrived in stunning evening gowns and impeccable tuxedos. The elite of the world, people who could spend millions without a second thought. She adjusted her elegant black dress and flashed a confident smile, blending seamlessly into the crowd as if she truly belonged there. But in reality, with every step she took, she was edging closer to an enormous secret. The secret of Sebastian Blackwood. And the man she was about to meet tonight, the one who would make her question everything she had ever believed in. The shimmering lights from the crystal chandelier reflected on the bar counter, creating an ethereal glow, like diamonds glistening in the midnight sea. Kira Donovan let her gaze sweep across the room, taking in every detail while maintaining a natural, effortless demeanor. The bar aboard the Elysium yacht was the meeting place of the world's most powerful figures, people who could sway global economies with a mere nod. She settled onto a bar stool, ordering a whiskey on the rocks, strong and sharp, much like herself. Barely a minute had passed when a deep, velvety voice sounded beside her. "Interesting choice." She raised an eyebrow and turned her head, immediately locking eyes with a gaze so deep, so unreadable, yet undeniably captivating. The man before her exuded an unusual presence, not ostentatious, yet impossible to ignore. His perfectly tailored black suit accentuated his tall, commanding figure. But what truly drew Kira in were his eyes, piercing, enigmatic, and impossible to decipher. She had never seen him before, yet somehow he felt strangely familiar. "Who are you?" she asked directly, unwilling to waste time on pleasantries. The man smirked, his lips curving into a cryptic smile. "Just another guest on the yacht." Under the warm golden glow of the chandeliers, they began to talk. At first, it was nothing more than casual small talk about drinks, the voyage, the extravagance of the yacht. But soon their conversation evolved into something more, a subtle, psychological game, a delicate battle of wits between two strangers. He was unlike any man Kira had ever met. He wasn't eager, didn't attempt to impress her like the other men on the yacht. On the contrary, he was reserved, measured. Each of his words felt like a finely honed blade, sharp and precise, cutting straight through her defenses. And Kira found herself drawn in. "You still haven't told me your name." She narrowed her eyes, absent-mindedly tracing the rim of her glass with a fingertip. "And you haven't told me yours." His reply was calm, effortless. "I don't like revealing personal information to strangers." She smirked. "Neither do I." His smile lingered, unwavering. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't awkward. It was thick with intrigue, charged with something unspoken. His eyes were like an endless abyss, dark and unreadable. Yet there was an undeniable pull to them, and at that moment, Kira felt something shift within her. The salty breeze swept through the yacht's corridors, carrying with it a silent invitation, a forceful, magnetic pull that even she couldn't quite explain. She had planned to leave, had intended to keep her distance, but something about this man made it impossible to walk away. A reckless impulse, a dangerous enigma. Or perhaps, for the first time in years, she simply wanted to let go. No words were exchanged. They simply gazed at each other, and naturally, as if fate had already decided, she let him pull her into a slow, intoxicating dance beneath the midnight sky. A firm hand on her waist, a steady breath near her ear. And in that fleeting, fragile moment, Kira knew she had lost control. She let herself be drawn into him, let logic and reason dissolve into nothingness. And in an opulent suite aboard the Elysium, beneath the silver moonlight reflecting off the endless ocean, they spent a night neither of them would ever forget. Kira awoke to the soft glow of morning filtering through the sheer curtains. The warmth of the night still lingered in the sheets. Yet the man from last night was gone. No note, no message. She slowly sat up, scanning the room as if searching for something. But there was nothing. Only an eerie emptiness, a strange sense of unease creeping into her chest. Could someone walk into her life so suddenly, make her abandon all her principles, and then vanish like they had never existed? Kira clenched the sheets between her fingers, a single thought forming in her mind. I don't even know his name. What she didn't know was that in just a few weeks, she would uncover a truth that would entangle her in a web of deception with no escape. And the man who had disappeared this morning was none other than the very person she had boarded the yacht to investigate, Sebastian Blackwood. Kira's small apartment was bathed in the soft morning light, yet she felt no warmth. Her hands clenched tightly around the pregnancy test, eyes locked onto the two unmistakable red lines. She was pregnant. Her breath hitched, heart pounding so violently it felt like it might break free from her chest. No, this can't be. But this was already the third test. Her fingers unconsciously moved to her stomach. A tiny life was forming inside her, the child of the mysterious man from that night, the man whose name she had never known, the man who had left no trace aboard the Elysium, the man who had vanished the next morning like a ghost. Kira was not the kind of woman who believed in fate. She had been abandoned as a child, raised in a cold and unfeeling foster system where she had learned the harsh truth. Never place your hopes in anyone. Love? She had once believed in it, but the only man she had ever loved had tossed her aside without hesitation, choosing a strategic marriage over their relationship. From that moment, she had stopped believing in men, in commitments. And now she wouldn't need the father of this child either. She would raise this baby on her own, protect it the way no one had protected her. She didn't need the responsibility of a stranger, especially one who had disappeared without a word. But there was one thing she couldn't ignore. Who was he? Her investigative instincts told her that this man was not ordinary. She needed to find out the truth. She began searching. With years of experience in uncovering hidden secrets, Kira knew how to find what people wanted to keep buried. She traced the Elysium's guest list, scoured through names, examined every photo, but none of them matched the man from that night. And that only made her suspicions grow stronger. No one disappears without a trace. Something was wrong. Then one morning, as she scrolled through a financial news article, her heart nearly stopped. The man in the photograph was the man she had spent the night with, Sebastian Blackwood, the most enigmatic CEO in the world. But what left her frozen wasn't just his identity, it was the headline beneath the image. Sebastian Blackwood, the mysterious CEO declared dead in a maritime accident 6 months ago. Number she had been with him that night, had felt his warmth, had looked directly into his eyes. He could not be dead. She could not have slept with a man who no longer existed. But what about the media? Why did every single news outlet report his death as an undeniable fact? Determined to find answers, she dug deeper, searching through archived articles, forensic reports of the accident, and that was when she found something strange. No one had ever seen his body. The official reports claimed his body had been lost at sea, yet shortly after, Blackwood Shipping publicly declared him deceased, as if someone wanted the world to believe Sebastian Blackwood no longer existed. Just as Kira started to uncover more, an anonymous email landed in her inbox. "Stop, Kira. Do not dig any further into Sebastian Blackwood. You are stepping into something you cannot control." No sender, no trace, a warning from the shadows as if someone was watching her every move. But instead of fear, a fire ignited in her eyes. She was not the kind of woman who backed down from threats. She was carrying the child of a man the world believed to be dead, and she would uncover the truth, no matter what it took. The light drizzle fell softly as Kira stood before the towering headquarters of Blackwood Shipping in the heart of London. The skyscraper's glass walls reflected the overcast sky, giving the entire structure a cold, imperious aura, just like the man behind it, Sebastian Blackwood. She still couldn't believe she was standing here, about to confront a man the entire world believed was dead. For the past 2 months, she had tried to make sense of what had happened, but the deeper she dug, the more terrifying the truth became. If Sebastian Blackwood was truly dead, then who had she spent that night with? And if he was alive, why was there such an elaborate effort to keep it a secret? She didn't care about his business, didn't need to know why he faked his death. She only needed one answer. Taking a deep breath, Kira pulled her coat tighter and stepped through the revolving glass doors. The lobby of Blackwood Shipping was grand, with high ceilings and warm golden lights. But it did nothing to soften the sterile chill that clung to the air. Employees in tailored suits moved efficiently through the space, yet something about the atmosphere felt off, a tension that shouldn't exist in a corporate environment. She strode purposefully to the front desk, her sharp gaze flicking to the receptionist's name tag. "I need to speak with someone." The receptionist hesitated, clearly caught off guard. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Who are you looking for?" Kira studied their reaction closely, noting the slight unease in their expression. They didn't know Sebastian was alive. That meant he was operating in the shadows, or someone else was pulling the strings in his absence. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "I have information about Sebastian Blackwood." As expected, the receptionist's expression immediately shifted. Their breath hitched, eyes darting slightly as if trying to determine whether this was some kind of joke. "I think you must be mistaken. Mr. Blackwood passed away." She let out a short, humorless laugh. "Oh? Then who's running this company?" The receptionist stiffened, clearly unwilling to say more. Before Kira could press further, a group of men in tailored black suits emerged from a private elevator across the lobby. They moved with practiced precision, the kind of people who were used to power and absolute control. And in the center of them, she saw him, Sebastian Blackwood, alive, in the flesh. Kira froze. He wasn't dead. He was here, walking through the building as if he had never disappeared. And yet he made no sign of recognizing her, no hesitation, no break in his stride. He was either oblivious to her presence or, more likely, deliberately ignoring her. Before she could stop herself, she called out, "Sebastian!" He stilled. The group of men immediately tensed, their posture shifting into high alert. Slowly he turned to face her. His sharp, storm-gray eyes met hers for the first time since that night. Recognition flickered in his gaze, but he gave no indication of surprise. Instead, his voice was cool, unreadable. "Who are you?" Kira clenched her fists. The bastard. He was pretending. "I need to talk to you." "I don't know you." His voice was infuriatingly calm, and with that, he turned and walked away. Watch me. Kira wasn't the type to give up. If Sebastian thought he could dismiss her that easily, he had grossly underestimated her. She spent the next hour studying the building's security patterns, watching employees come and go. Eventually, she spotted an opportunity, an executive stepping out of the private elevator using an access card. Timing it perfectly, she slipped in before the doors shut. When the elevator stopped at the top floor, her pulse quickened. She stepped out into a sleek, minimalist corridor, at the end of which loomed a massive wooden door engraved with the Blackwood emblem. She didn't knock. Pushing the door open, she found Sebastian standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, hands in his pockets, his back turned to her, as if he had been expecting her all along. "You shouldn't be here." His voice was low, edged with warning. She shut the door behind her and stepped forward. "Who are you? Why does the world think you're dead?" Slowly he turned to face her, his expression unreadable, his gaze like the depths of a dark ocean, silent, impenetrable. A long pause stretched between them before he spoke, voice as steady as ever. "I faked my death." She narrowed her eyes, waiting for him to elaborate. "Someone wanted me dead. If I hadn't disappeared, I wouldn't be standing here today." She wasn't surprised. Her instincts had told her there was something far bigger at play, but she didn't care about any of that. She wasn't here to talk about corporate warfare or hidden enemies. She was here for one reason only. Looking directly into his eyes, she said with quiet finality, "I'm pregnant, and the child is yours." No dramatic gasp, no explosion of shock like in the movies. Sebastian simply stood there, staring at her, a silent storm brewing behind his eyes. He didn't speak for several agonizing seconds. Then he stepped forward, closing the distance between them. His voice, when he finally spoke, was low and firm. "If the child is mine, I will take responsibility." Kira let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. "I don't need you to take responsibility." Sebastian's expression darkened. "I'll raise this baby myself." She said it with absolute certainty, leaving no room for argument. For the first time, something flickered in his gaze, something almost amused, a spark of challenge. Sebastian Blackwood was a man used to being in control. But the woman standing before him, she wasn't afraid of him. She didn't need him, and she dared to reject him outright. His jaw tightened, his eyes turning sharp. "You think you can just cut me out of my child's life?" Kira arched a brow, smirking slightly. "I don't think. I know." The air between them grew so charged it was suffocating. She had just told Sebastian Blackwood he had no say in his own child's life, and she knew without a doubt that this was only the beginning of the battle between them. The tension between Kira and Sebastian had barely settled when the office door burst open. A deafening explosion shook the entire room, shattering the glass windows into countless razor-sharp shards. Instinct took over. Sebastian lunged forward, grabbing Kira and pulling her down just as the glass rained around them. Dark figures stormed in, their guns glinting under the office lights. Armed assassins. No warnings, no demands. They were here to kill. Sebastian wasted no time. He yanked Kira up, his grip tight around her wrist. "Run!" His voice was sharp, commanding, leaving no room for argument. Kira barely had time to process what was happening before he was dragging her out of the room. The air behind them whistled as bullets sliced through it, splintering the thick wooden door they had just slammed shut. Sebastian moved with terrifying precision. He wasn't panicked, wasn't hesitating. Every step was calculated, as if he had done this 1,000 times before. Kira wasn't weak, but in that moment, she had no choice but to keep up. They sprinted down a long corridor, the emergency lights flashing red, casting an eerie glow over the chaos. This was a nightmare. "Do you have a gun?" Sebastian asked as they dashed past rows of offices. "I'm a journalist, not a damn assassin," Kira shot back, breathless. Sebastian muttered a curse under his breath, reaching into his jacket and pulling out a Glock. "Then learn fast." He pressed the weapon into her hands without breaking stride. The sound of gunfire echoed through the halls as they dove into the stairwell. More assassins? They weren't just after Sebastian, they were after both of them. Kira's pulse pounded as she spotted figures at both the top and bottom of the stairs. "Shit, we're surrounded!" Sebastian's grip tightened. "Stay with me." Without warning, he yanked her into a side hallway, shoving open a heavy steel door. A storage room, dimly lit, filled with metal shelves. At the far end, she spotted an emergency exit. "Go," Sebastian ordered. They pushed through the door, emerging into the underground parking garage. Sebastian didn't hesitate. He pulled out his key fob and pressed a button. Headlights flashed as a sleek black sports car roared to life. "Get in!" Kira didn't need to be told twice. The engine roared as Sebastian floored the gas, the tires screeching against the concrete as they sped out of the garage. The city blurred past them, neon lights streaking across the windshield. In the rearview mirror, Kira spotted black SUVs speeding after them, their headlights slicing through the night. "Who the hell are they?" she shouted over the wind and the engine's growl. Sebastian's jaw clenched. "People who want me dead." She let out a dry laugh, adrenaline still spiking through her veins. "Well, congratulations. They're doing a damn good job of trying." Sebastian didn't respond. His hands were tight on the wheel, his gaze locked on the road. The car swerved sharply into a narrow side street, trying to shake off the pursuit, but the assassins weren't giving up. The high-speed chase dragged on through the labyrinth of London's streets until Sebastian finally maneuvered the car into an underground parking lot, cutting the engine and signaling Kira to stay quiet. They sat in the darkness, listening as the distant screech of tires faded into the distance. The silence that followed was suffocating. Kira exhaled slowly, fingers still curled around the cold grip of the Glock. She turned to face Sebastian. "Now what?" His storm gray eyes met hers. "We need to leave London, immediately." She blinked, still trying to catch up with everything. "Wait, what? Why the hell would I go anywhere with you?" Sebastian's lips curled into a dry smirk. "Because you think they'll just let you walk away after seeing you with me?" Kira opened her mouth to argue, but shut it just as fast. She hated that he was right. She had already been dragged into this mess. There was no turning back now. She slumped against the seat, muttering a curse under her breath. "This is insane." Sebastian barely spared her a glance before pulling out his phone. He pressed a number, his voice low and firm. "Prepare the jet. We leave in an hour." Kira clenched her fists. She had never expected her investigation to lead here. But now she had no choice. They had to run. The private jet touched down at a secluded airstrip just outside Paris, its wheels skimming the runway with effortless precision. Sebastian wasted no time lingering. As soon as the plane came to a stop, they were already moving, boarding another car, leaving the airport behind, and heading straight into the heart of the city. From the back seat, Kira watched the city lights flicker past the tinted windows. She had been to Paris before, many times in fact, but never like this. Never as a fugitive, caught in the orbit of a man who was supposed to be dead. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice steady despite the storm of unanswered questions still raging inside her. Sebastian glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "I have a safe house here, but we can't stay long." Kira studied his reflection, the way his jaw tightened slightly before he returned his focus to the road. "How long have you been living like this?" A long silence stretched between them before he finally spoke. "Longer than you think." When they arrived at the penthouse, the elevator doors opened to reveal a space so pristine, so effortlessly elegant, that it felt completely detached from the chaos of their reality. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a breathtaking view of the Parisian skyline, the Eiffel Tower glowing in the distance like a silent witness to their predicament. Kira stepped inside, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. The sheer luxury of it all made the past 24 hours feel even more surreal. How had her life led her here? Running through cities with a man she barely knew, a man the world thought was dead? Sebastian tossed his coat over the back of a chair and turned to her. "Drink?" Kira folded her arms. "I want to know what the hell is going on." He leaned against the sleek kitchen counter, his gaze darkening slightly. "I have enemies. They want control of my company. When they couldn't buy me, they decided to kill me." She held his stare. "So why not tell the world you're still alive?" Sebastian let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "You think it's that simple? I need to find the mastermind behind this before they find me first." Kira exhaled slowly. "And now I'm tangled up in this mess." "Yes." His voice was calm, unwavering. Then his eyes locked onto hers, something unreadable flickering beneath his controlled exterior. "And I can't let you die." For the first time, Kira truly felt the weight of their situation. This wasn't just a conspiracy. It was a war she had stepped into the moment she set foot on Elysium. But amid the chaos, something else had shifted inside her. It wasn't just survival instinct that kept her here. Maybe it was the way Sebastian protected her without hesitation. Maybe it was the unshakable resolve in his gaze, the way he carried the weight of his enemies without ever showing weakness. Or maybe, just maybe, her heart was beginning to waver, and that was more dangerous than the men hunting them. Snow fell thick and heavy as Sebastian drove through the winding Swiss mountains, towering pines blanketed in white on either side of the road. The SUV glided smoothly across the curves, its headlights cutting through the quiet darkness. Kira sat in the passenger seat, wrapped in a thick coat, her gaze fixed outside the window, but her mind was a complete void. They had been on the run for days, from London to Paris, and now to this remote, secluded region, a place where no one could find them. She knew it was necessary, knew that stopping would mean putting their lives in danger, but somewhere deep inside, she still couldn't fully accept the reality of it all. She was here, traveling through the mountains, with a man she wasn't sure she could trust. Sebastian pulled the SUV to a stop in front of a small cabin, nestled deep within the snowy forest. He shut off the engine but remained in place, gripping the steering wheel, staring straight ahead in silence. In the absolute stillness of the mountains, Kira could hear his steady but weighted breaths. "We'll stay here for a while." His voice was quiet, his fingers tightening slightly against the leather, before he finally pushed open the door and stepped out. Kira watched him for a second before following suit. The icy air hit her lungs like a sharp blade, making her shiver instantly. Snowflakes drifted lazily onto her hair, but she made no move to brush them away. Her thoughts were too tangled, too heavy. Sebastian unlocked the cabin and flicked on the lights, revealing a cozy but modest interior. The stone fireplace was already lit, filling the space with a soft, golden glow. He shrugged off his coat, hanging it up before turning to look at her. Kira hesitated for a moment before stepping inside, peeling off her gloves and walking toward the warmth of the fire. She stretched out her hands, letting the heat seep into her frozen fingers. She was exhausted, not just from the constant running, but from the storm raging inside her mind. Why was she here? She should have gone back to London, continued her life, her work. But everything had changed from the moment she discovered the truth about Sebastian, about the secrets he hid, about the child growing inside her. Footsteps echoed softly behind her. She could feel him before she even turned. Sebastian settled into the chair across from her, the firelight casting deep shadows along his features. His gray eyes, always so guarded, flickered with something she couldn't quite decipher. She had been with him long enough to know he wasn't an easy man to read. But tonight, something in the way he looked at her felt different. "What are you thinking about?" she finally asked, breaking the silence between them. Sebastian held her gaze as if debating whether to answer truthfully. "About us." His voice was steady, but there was weight behind his words. Her heart skipped a beat before she quickly reined herself back in. "There's nothing to think about. This is just an unfortunate situation." Sebastian tilted his head slightly, studying her, as if measuring how much she actually believed her own words. "Do you really think that?" Kira didn't respond immediately. The logical answer would have been, yes. That's what she should say. But she couldn't, because no matter how hard she tried to ignore it, deny it, push it away, she couldn't silence the way his presence made her feel safe. She couldn't ignore the way he looked at her, as if she was more important than any of the plans he had set in motion. "At first, I only thought about my responsibility to the baby." His voice was low, quiet, yet unwavering. "But as time passed, I realized I care about more than just the baby. I care about you, Kira." She went completely still. "I don't just want to be the father of our child." He leaned forward slightly, his eyes never leaving hers. "I want to be the man standing beside you." A rush of emotion slammed into her, too fast, too strong. She had no idea how to respond. She had spent years teaching herself that love was a luxury she couldn't afford, that people always left, betrayed, abandoned. But here he was, a man who was never supposed to mean anything beyond that one night, saying he wanted to stay. She let out a soft, almost disbelieving laugh, shaking her head slightly. "Sebastian, you do realize I'm not the type to believe in pretty words, right?" He nodded. "I know, and I don't expect you to believe me immediately, but I need you to understand. This isn't just responsibility. I love you, Kira." Her heart pounded, a heavy, erratic rhythm against her ribs. She searched his face, looking for lies, for deception, but all she saw was sincerity. She exhaled, her mind spinning. "Sebastian, I don't know how to answer that." He didn't pressure her. "You don't have to. Not now. Just know that I'm not going anywhere." She turned away, staring into the flickering flames of the fireplace, her fingers unconsciously twisting together. She knew she was wavering. She knew that if she allowed herself to believe him, to hope, she might not be able to walk away. She had spent so long being alone. She had learned how to protect herself, how to survive without needing anyone. But Sebastian, he made that impossible. She could feel his gaze on her, patient, unwavering, waiting, not forcing, not demanding, just waiting. And somehow that scared her more than anything. Pushing to her feet, she pulled her coat closer around her. "I need some air." Sebastian didn't stop her. He simply watched as she stepped outside, leaving behind a room thick with words left unspoken. Outside, the cold night air stung her skin, her breath forming soft white clouds against the winter sky. She tilted her head back, staring at the endless expanse of stars, feeling like she was being torn apart by two different versions of herself. Part of her wanted to trust him, to believe that maybe, just maybe, this time it could be different. But another part of her still screamed that she couldn't afford to be weak, that if she gave in, if she handed over her heart, she wouldn't survive it if he left. But deep down, no matter how much she tried to fight it, she knew one thing. Sebastian had become something she never expected, and that was the most terrifying thing of all. Are you still following the story? Leave a comment and let us know where you are following along. The waves crashed forcefully against the ship's hull, creating a deep, guttural roar amidst the pitch-black sea. The luxury yacht Solstice cut through the ocean like a pristine white beast, carrying not only the world's most powerful figures, but also a dark conspiracy reaching its inevitable climax. Sebastian stood on the deck, his gaze cold as steel as he stared into the distance. Tonight would be the last time he faced Vincent Caldwell, the traitor, the former business partner, and once a friend. Beside him, Kira gripped the railing tightly. She was no longer just a woman caught in this war. She had seen the truth, fought alongside Sebastian, and now she would help him end it. "Are you sure he'll come?" she asked, her voice low but firm. Sebastian didn't turn, his eyes fixed on the lower deck. He has no other choice. The man who betrayed Blackwood Shipping, Vincent Caldwell, once Sebastian's equal, a man who had sat at the same table, toasted billion-dollar deals, and built an empire together, was now the mastermind behind this treachery. Years ago, Vincent had tried to seize control of Blackwood Shipping, but failed. When money couldn't buy Sebastian's submission, he had orchestrated his murder. The maritime accident had been a ruse. Vincent had thought Sebastian was dead, assumed the company would fall effortlessly into his hands. But he had miscalculated. Someone had betrayed him first, exposing his plan before he could claim victory. Sebastian narrowed his eyes as Vincent finally stepped onto the deck, his presence as arrogant as ever. But tonight, there was no partnership, no brotherhood, only vengeance. "I must say I'm surprised to see you alive, Sebastian." Vincent's voice was composed, but the tension in his eyes betrayed him. Sebastian smirked, his expression unreadable. "Then don't be surprised when you lose." Vincent tilted his head slightly, analyzing every move. "You think you've won? I have everything. Board members, investors, unlimited resources. And you? You're a dead man." Before Sebastian could respond, a voice cut through the night air. "Do you really think you have everything, Vincent?" "I'm afraid not." Kira turned sharply, her breath catching, as Ethan Carter, Sebastian's former right-hand man, and the very person she believed had allied with Vincent, emerged from the shadows. "You?" she gasped, her eyes wide in shock. Ethan stepped forward, his sharp gaze unwavering. "Surprised? I was the one who sent you the information, Kira. I contacted you from the very beginning." Sebastian's expression darkened as he eyed Ethan. "Why?" Ethan gave a wry smile. "I spent too many years watching Blackwood Shipping being torn apart, but at the time I truly believed you were dead. I thought the only way to expose the truth was to enlist someone who wasn't afraid to dig where no one else would. That person was Kira." A chill ran down Kira's spine. Ethan had orchestrated everything, but there was something that didn't add up. "If you really wanted to help me, why did you later send a warning telling me to stop investigating?" she demanded. Ethan sighed, his expression shifting into something almost remorseful. "Because I found out Sebastian was alive. Before that, I thought he was gone for good. But once I realized the truth, I knew he had his own plan. The deeper you dug, the more danger you put yourself in. I tried to protect you by making you stop, but I knew someone like you wouldn't give up that easily." Kira bit her lip, conflicting emotions churning inside her. "Then why are you standing with us now?" Ethan turned to Sebastian, his face devoid of hesitation. "Because I finally understood. Vincent doesn't just want to control Blackwood Shipping. He wants to eliminate everyone in his way, including me. I have no choice but to play my final hand. And you, Sebastian, are the only one who can take him down." Vincent's jaw tightened, fury flashing across his face. "You traitorous bastard!" Ethan met his glare, a smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. "Let's call it justice." Vincent clenched his fists, but he wasn't ready to surrender. In one swift motion, he pulled a gun from his coat, aiming straight at Sebastian. A single gunshot shattered the night. Vincent's body jerked, his eyes widening as he looked down at his own hand. Blood seeping through his sleeve, spreading rapidly. His grip on the weapon slackened, and the gun clattered onto the deck with a hollow, lifeless sound. Sebastian slowly lowered his own gun, his expression unmoved. Vincent staggered, barely able to remain standing. You... This is the price you pay." Sebastian's voice was calm, final. The sound of heavy footsteps filled the air as law enforcement agents stormed onto the yacht. It was over. The aftermath. As Vincent was taken away, Ethan stepped beside Sebastian, tossing him a thick folder of documents. "The last of the evidence," he said. "I've been compiling it for months." Sebastian took the file, flipping through the pages. This was the final piece. Proof of Vincent's illegal dealings, fraudulent contracts, and his attempt to overthrow Blackwood Shipping. Sebastian studied Ethan for a long moment before giving a small nod. "Thank you." Ethan smirked. "Don't thank me. I just did what was right. And now I can finally walk away from all this." Sebastian nodded. "You did good." Ethan turned to Kira. "I suppose now you understand why I did what I did, don't you?" She looked at him, considering everything that had happened. Finally, she gave a small nod. She had once thought Ethan was her enemy, but in the end, he had become one of their most important allies. Taking a deep breath, Ethan turned away, his silhouette fading into the dark. "I hope I never have to see either of you under circumstances like this again." Sebastian and Kira watched as he disappeared into the night. "He's a complicated man," Kira murmured. Sebastian let out a quiet chuckle. "We all are." She glanced up, and for the first time, she caught warmth in his gaze. After everything they had been through, after all the pain, the uncertainty, the battles fought, Kira finally allowed herself to trust, not because Sebastian was perfect, but because he had chosen to stay. The sea was calm, the wind whispered through her hair, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she felt at peace. This wasn't just an ending. This was the beginning of something eternal. The first light of dawn broke over the ocean, casting golden hues across the horizon after a night of chaos. On the deck of the Solstice, Sebastian leaned against the railing, his gaze fixed on the endless expanse of water. It was over. Blackwood Shipping was his again. The traitor had been taken into custody, and he no longer had to live in the shadows. Kira stepped beside him, draping a jacket over his shoulders, even though she knew he didn't need it. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Sebastian turned to her, a faint smile crossing his lips. "For the first time in a long while, I feel at peace." She nodded, but there was something unsettled in her expression. "So, that means we don't have to run anymore." A long silence stretched between them before Sebastian finally spoke. "No, we don't, but it also means you're free to leave whenever you want." Her fingers tightened around the railing. That was what she had once wanted. Freedom, no ties, no obligations. But why did those words feel like a knife to her heart now? "And what about you?" Her voice came out quieter than she expected. Sebastian took a deep breath. "I told you, Kira. I don't just want to be the father of your child. I want to be the man beside you." She met his gaze, and for the first time, she felt no fear, no hesitation. She nodded. A rare chuckle escaped Sebastian, a quiet but deeply genuine laugh. "All right, Kira." She smiled, then leaned in and pressed her lips to his. A kiss beneath the rising sun, surrounded by the endless sea, where there were no more secrets, no more shadows, no more running. And for the first time, Kira knew she had finally found where she belonged. 3 months later, Sebastian Blackwood officially returned to his position as CEO of Blackwood Shipping, making his first public appearance since the world had presumed him dead. The press conference hall at the company's headquarters was packed with reporters, camera flashes illuminating the stage as he stepped forward. Dressed in his signature tailored suit, he looked every bit the powerful businessman the world had always known him to be. But there was something different now, a quiet strength, a steadiness that went beyond boardroom negotiations and financial empires. In the glare of the spotlights, it was clear that Sebastian had changed. "First and foremost, I want to thank those who stood by me and believed in Blackwood Shipping during this difficult time." His deep voice resonated through the hall, his sharp gaze sweeping over the sea of reporters. "I am not here just to reclaim my position. I am here to lead this company into a new era, an era of transparency, strength, and a future untainted by corruption." A wave of applause rippled through the crowd. The journalists were ready, poised to fire questions about his disappearance, about the conspiracies that had nearly destroyed him. But Sebastian only offered a knowing, measured smile. "We cannot change the past," he said, "but we can shape the future. And the future of Blackwood Shipping will no longer be dictated by shadows." As he prepared to step away from the podium, his eyes flickered toward the front row, where a woman with long brown hair and unwavering blue eyes watched him. Kira. She no longer hid in the background, no longer lingered in the shadows as a journalist chasing the next big expose. She was here not for the story, but for him. And for the first time in his life, Sebastian knew that nothing mattered more. That evening, Sebastian drove Kira toward a quiet suburban area just outside London. She sat in the passenger seat, watching as the city lights faded behind them, her mind filled with curiosity. "Where are you taking me?" she finally asked. Sebastian simply smiled, offering no answer. A few moments later, the car rolled to a stop in front of an elegant brick house, nestled within a small garden overflowing with blooming roses. Kira stepped out, inhaling the crisp, fresh air of the countryside. She turned to him, her eyes filled with silent questions. "I once told you that when all of this was over, there was something important I needed to do." Sebastian took a step closer, his dark eyes filled with something warmer, deeper than she had ever seen before. Raindrops began to fall, soft, delicate drops that dampened her hair, but she barely noticed. The only thing she could see was the man before her, the man who had run with her, fought with her, and now stood before her with something greater than all of that. Sebastian knelt down, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "I have lived a life full of storms, but I never truly felt alive until I met you." He opened the box, revealing a simple yet perfect platinum ring. "I told you once before, I don't just want to be the father of your child. I want to be the man standing beside you. So I'll ask you again today, Kira Donovan, will you marry me?" Kira stood frozen. Rain cascaded down her face, but she didn't care. For so long, she had believed that marriage was a chain, something fragile, something that could be betrayed and abandoned. But here, standing before this man, she realized it wasn't a cage. It was a promise, a real promise, one not dictated by obligation or gain, but by choice. She looked into Sebastian's unwavering gaze and she knew she didn't have to run anymore. A smile broke across her face, tears blending with the rain. Yes, I will. Sebastian rose to his feet, pulling her into his arms, capturing her lips in a kiss beneath the falling rain. No more shadows, no more danger, just the two of them and the future ahead. 1 year later, in a stunning beachside villa, Kira cradled a tiny baby boy in her arms, his jet black hair curled slightly against his soft skin, his deep blue eyes fluttering shut as he dreamed peacefully. Sebastian stepped beside her, pressing a gentle kiss to their child's forehead. He has your eyes, he murmured. Kira chuckled softly. But he has your smile. They stood on the balcony, gazing out at the endless ocean stretching before them. The breeze carried the scent of the sea, a calm, steady rhythm that mirrored the new life they had built together. Kira turned to the man beside her, the man who had once been a mystery, a ghost among the living. But now he was her husband, the father of their child, the one person she knew she could trust forever. Sebastian gently squeezed her hand. Are you happy? She met his gaze, her smile full of love, peace, and certainty. More than ever, he leaned in, capturing her lips in a soft, lingering kiss. And in that moment, Kira knew every hardship, every danger they had faced had been worth it. They were no longer running. There were no more secrets between them, only love and a lifetime to share it. Their story was not just a journey from mystery and danger to love. It was a journey of growth, forgiveness, and believing in a future worth fighting for. Because sometimes the greatest battle is not against an enemy, but against the fears within our own hearts. And when we dare to face them, we can find love, peace, and a place to call home. Thank you for following our story. Did this story touch your heart? Leave a comment below. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.